Good morning, and welcome to the National Archives. I'm David Ferriero, the Archivist of the United States, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's meeting of the 2016-2018 term of the FOIA Advisory Committee. 2.5 weeks ago, I hosted the annual celebration of our nation's independence, the 241st anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Our annual 4th of July celebration is always a highlight at the National Archives, and it was our pleasure to forego the day off, and thanks to our many staff volunteers, keep our museum doors open late so visitors could view the Declaration of Independence, engage in family activities, peruse our exhibit galleries, and reflect on this special day. As many of you in this room know, the National Archives is also the home of the Freedom of Information Act, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 4th, 1966. Over the last 51 years, the FOIA has served as a critical vehicle for helping the public access agency records and improve our understanding of our government. This committee has the critical task of ensuring that despite changes in technology that have fundamentally changed the way that government operates and the public's expectations for openness, FOIA meets the public's need for access over the next 50 years and beyond. Before I turn the program over to Alina to begin today's meeting, I want to welcome a new member to the committee and thank him for his willingness to contribute to this important effort. Our newest member, Michael Bell, joins us as a representative of the Department of Health and Human Services, where he has served as the Deputy Director of the Freedom of Information Privacy Act FOIA PA Division and the FOIA Public Liaison since 2013. He also held FOIA leadership positions at the Department of Defense and the Department of the Treasury's Office of Financial Stability. Since becoming the HHS FOIA Public Liaison, Michael emphasized increased responsiveness to the concerns of all FOIA requesters. He was part of the HHS leadership team that received the 2017 Sunshine Week Award for exceptional service by a team of FOIA professionals. DOJ presented the award to HHS for being the only federal agency to meet or exceed DOJ's 10% backlog reduction goal for the entirety of the Obama administration. I'd also like to thank today's guest speaker, Chief Records Officer Lawrence Brewer, for being here today. There is an undeniable link between agencies' records management practices and their ability to locate and make accessible records requested under FOIA. Lawrence, I appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge with the committee, and I'll now turn the program over to Alina to begin today's meeting.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's quarterly meeting of the Federal FOIA Advisory Committee. Whether you're here in person, via telephone, or via live streaming, we're all happy to have you here. As the Director of the Office of Government Information Services and this committee's chair, it is also my pleasure to welcome you all to the McGowan Theater and to the National Archives and Records Administration. I also want to join the archivist in thanking Michael Bell for joining this committee. And Michael has told us he is very eager to help, plans to sign up for all 3 subcommittees. Michael, is that true?
Oh, lead them all too, yeah.
Yeah. We all look forward to working with you, so thank you. I also want to acknowledge our Argentinian delegation, with whom I had the pleasure of meeting earlier this week, and Melanie did as well. They are just getting started in their FOIA program. Their FOIA statute passed last fall, so they have a lot to learn. We have a little bit more experience in 50 years. This is the 5th meeting of this committee's 2016-2018 term, which means that we are now past the halfway point of this committee's tenure. As most of you know, NARA and OGIS convened this body to create much-needed framework for FOIA experts, both inside and outside of government, to consider some of the greatest challenges in the administration of FOIA and develop consensus solutions and recommendations that will be sent to the archivist. Earlier this month, I emailed you all to lay out an aggressive but necessary schedule of target dates we want you to keep in mind in the coming months. The schedule is designed to allow our 3 subcommittees to complete all the great work they've been doing and ensure that the committee has sufficient time to fully consider all of the great ideas generated by the subcommittees. We are counting on our subcommittee co-chairs to do the quote-unquote heavy lifting that is necessary to shape the subcommittee's draft recommendations, and hope that each of the subcommittees will have draft recommendations for the committee to discuss at our next meeting on October 19th, 2017. OGIS will continue to provide you with any administrative support you may need to meet this goal, and I, in particular, want to recognize our designated federal official, OGIS Management Analyst Amy Bennett, who, as required by FACA, has been heavily involved with the subcommittees as they continue their work. I know you will all be keeping her very busy in the next few months. I want to just give her a round of applause for all the great work she's done so far. It was not in the talking points, and she will undoubtedly be doing a lot more work in the near future, but she's excited. I believe you will all enjoy the great insights of our guest speaker and my colleague, Lawrence Brewer, the Chief Records Officer. He will be providing us with that shortly, and I look forward to hearing all the reports from and updates from each of the subcommittees. Shortly, I will go through some basic housekeeping rules, review our general agenda, and set some expectations for today's meeting. First, though, let's spend a few minutes introducing the committee members participating in the meeting, and we'll start with those on the telephone, and then we'll follow up with those who are sitting around the table today. So, folks who are on the phone, Stephanie Carr, are you there?
Hi there. This is Stephanie Carr, and I'm here representing the Office of the Secretary of Defense Joint Staff, Freedom of Information Office.
Okay, thank you. James Hirschberg?
Hi, I'm a historian of the Cold War and nuclear arms race based at George Washington University, and I used to be the director of the Cold War International History Project of the Woodrow Wilson Center.
Okay. Sarah Kotler?
Hi, I'm the FOIA officer at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Raynell Lazier?
I'm the FOIA manager at Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Okay, and James Valvo?
Hi, I'm counsel and senior policy advisor at Cause of Action Institute.
Okay, and is Michael DeKesho on the phone with us? Maybe he'll be joining us shortly. Lynn Walsh, I understand, was unable to call in, but indicated she would be trying to tune in via live stream, so I hope she will chat with us and send us any comments she might have. Did I miss anyone else on the telephone? Doesn't sound that way. Okay, let's hear from everyone in the room, starting with the end of the table to my right.
Good morning, Logan Perrell from the Department of Treasury.
Nate Jones, National Security Archive.
Ginger McCall, Department of Labor.
David Pritzker, Administrative Conference of the United States.
Chris Knox with Deloitte.
Melanie Postay, Department of Justice.
Alina Simo, Director of OGIS.
Sean Moulton, Project and Government Oversight.
Margaret Cuoco, University of Denver.
Jill Eggleston, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Tom Sussman, American Bar Association.
And Mike Bell, Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone to remember to identify yourselves by name and affiliation whenever you speak. It helps our minutes for the meeting tremendously and helps us keep more accurate minutes. I keep forgetting to remind everyone that. Also, please keep in mind there will be a slight delay between the time the members on the phone speak and when the microphones in the room are turned back on. So this ensures that the live stream captures all audio. That's hard for me to remember because I like to speak very fast. On to some administration notes. The committee provides a forum for public discussion of FOIA issues and offers members of the public the opportunity to weigh in on the administration of FOIA and to provide their ideas for improving the FOIA process. We encourage the public to share their written comments and suggestions with the committee. And to learn more about submitting public comments to the committee, please visit our newly updated website at www.archives.gov/OGIS. At the end of the meeting, we will have time for public comments, and we look forward to hearing from any non-committee members who have thoughts or comments they would like to share. We are very pleased to see so many of you with an interest in FOIA here in McGowan today, and again, we very much welcome your feedback. We are monitoring this committee session, a live stream, And we will be monitoring live chat. So for those of you watching us on YouTube, if you have any questions or comments, please send them in now so we can bring them up during the public comment period. Our colleague, Joe Hudson, has graciously agreed to keep track of any chat questions and comments that come in. To promote openness, transparency, and public engagement, we post committee updates and information to our website, our blog, and on Twitter at FOIA_ombuds. The URLs to these sites are on the slides behind me. No, they're not. They usually are. Stay up to date on the latest OGIS and FOIA Advisory Committee news, activities, and events by following us on Twitter. Information about the committee, including members' biographies, committee documents, and public comments, are available on the OGIS website. As I said earlier, we are live streaming this meeting, and we will make the video transcript and meeting materials available on our committee webpage as soon as possible. There is a little bit of a delay, so be patient with us. We expect to have it up in approximately 30 days, so thanks for your patience. We will take one 15-minute break about halfway through the meeting. I predict 11:30, but if things are moving more quickly, it'll be sooner. You may wish to purchase food or drink from the Charters Cafe, which last time was closed, but I believe this time it's reopened. It's located on this level. As a reminder, no food or drink is allowed in the theater. And please note, there are restrooms directly outside of this theater and another set downstairs near the cafe. Let's turn our attention now to the approval of our April 20th meeting minutes. I am advised that committee members have had a chance to review a copy of the April 20th meeting minutes, and all comments have been received and incorporated, and I have certified the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved and will be available for public inspection on the committee's website. Okay, moving right along, we are very happy to welcome our colleague, Chief Records Officer Lawrence Brewer today. He is going to give us a great presentation on the important work that he has been doing to ensure that agencies are managing their records properly. Lawrence, hold on, I have a long introduction, long build-up. As a component of the National Archives and Records Administration, it is hopefully not surprising to hear us place a strong emphasis on proper records management. Good records management practices are important for ensuring that agencies can carry out their daily work, and they are critical for a successful FOIA operation. After all, if an agency cannot locate records, the agency cannot review them for later release to the public. That is why we believe that good records management is the backbone of a good FOIA program. The archivist appointed Lawrence Brewer as the Chief Records Officer for the U.S. government effective May 1st, 2016. Lawrence had served as the acting Chief Records Officer since October 2015. He joined the National Archives in 1999 as an appraisal archivist and later worked as an electronic records policy analyst. His management experience within the National Archives includes serving as Director of the Lifecycle Management Division and as Director of the Records Management Operations Program. In these positions, Lawrence was responsible for overseeing the scheduling and appraisal of federal records, developing records management regulations and guidance, supporting records management training for employees across the federal government, and evaluating the effectiveness of records management programs and agencies. Before joining the National Archives, Lawrence was a records management consultant responsible for managing records management programs at EPA and the Virginia Department of Transportation. He has more than 25 years of experience in records and information management. Lawrence earned his certified records manager designation and completed the Partnership for Public Services Excellence in Government Fellows Program. He holds an MA in political science from the University of Georgia and a BA in government from the College of William & Mary. I will now turn the floor over to Lawrence, and you're on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. So one thing I know I need to do now is figure out a way to shorten that bio. It's way too long, but very, very, very well presented, Alina. I appreciate it. So I'm here to talk to you about records management and open government. And like the archivist said at the beginning, they're very much related and connected, but they are different things. And we feel like records management is central to making sure that records can be found and accessed in agencies, but it's also central to the open government initiatives that, that we at the National Archives have done and across the government. So it's a very, I think, timely topic and important topic that we should all be talking about today. So I'm going to talk a lot about open government, but I also wanted to touch on a number of other things that I think you might be interested in that we're working on in records management. So it's sort of the past, the present, the future of what's going on in records management. So it's almost like, you know, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. We'll go through the ghosts of records management, past, present, and future, so that you can see what we have been focused on and then where we're going in the years to come. So I understand that while there are a lot of federal people here, there are a number of folks who are not federal and may not know what we do, not necessarily in the National Archives, but in the Office of the Chief Records Officer. So on the left side of the slide, you can see the basic information about NARA. We are an independent federal agency. However, the background to that is in 1985, we staged a revolt and gained our freedom from our GSA overlords. So now we are a freestanding agency, and we have our own budget and about 3,000 employees, of which 100 of those employees are within my office and doing records management, working very closely with federal agencies. The things that we work on in the Office of the Chief Records Officer are listed here on the slide in essentially 4 programs. We have a records management training program where we provide face-to-face courses and then a lot of online content via our YouTube channel and our learning management system to federal agencies to train them about the policies and requirements related to records management. We also have a growing oversight program. And this is the program where we do inspections of federal agencies and collect a lot of the reporting data, some of which I'll talk about in a minute. We also have a policy and outreach program. So this is the program that develops the NARA bulletins, works on our regulations, and issues guidance to agencies on what they should be doing to make sure that they are doing effective records management so that records can be found, accessed, and retrieved. As part of that program, we have a very small outreach staff who help me with meetings with other agencies, with senior officials at agencies, and then doing a lot of the meetings that we do to get the word out about records management. And then finally, we have our records management operations program, which is our largest program. And within this program, this is where we do appraisal and scheduling, working directly with agencies to review and process record schedules. It's also where we have an agency assistance team that works directly with agencies to sort of help them with implementation issues. And it's also where we have our general record schedules team, which is the team that is updating, revising, and will be developing new general record schedules. In fact, just this morning, a new transmittal was issued to agencies with the latest batch of general record schedules that agencies can now use to authorize destruction of temporary records. So I wanted to put this quick slide in here sort of to outline what we're focusing on from a high-level vision perspective. So the top of it is NARA's vision, which, if you read it, focuses on engagement and discovery and really gets that sort of message about connection with the public and our stakeholders, but then also at the very end talks about archives in a digital world. So there's a very strong connection with that vision to what we do in focusing on electronic records. Our vision internally within our office is much more specific. It's definitely focused more around technology, understanding the implications of technology within agencies and what that does for records management to make sure that records are managed effectively. One of the things that we talk about a lot, and I know I talk about with my staff, is that we want to get to this place. So it's definitely visionary, where records are viewed as integral or essential to every agency's mission. So we all know, like if you think about NASA, their mission is putting people on the moon. We want other agencies to think about records management in that same vein. Now, this is why it's a vision. We don't expect that's going to happen anytime soon, but it is a challenge that we continue to work on to try and elevate the profile of records management within agencies. As part of that, we are also talking more about governance of information, where records management is a part of that larger information governance perspective. So when we talk to CIOs within agencies who are responsible for information writ large, we want them to understand that records management is a critical piece of that strategy. I'll talk a lot more about managing electronically when we talk next about the Managing Government Records Directive. But I want to say one more thing on this slide about having records management be transparent to the user. One of the things that we're trying to get to is figuring out how we can make technology work to the extent where records can be managed more consistently, more effectively, with minimal intervention on the part of the user. We recognize that certainly in the past when agency staff were printing and filing, that it was very burdensome to have agencies do records management and do it well. So we want to really work with the other communities in the private sector, within other agencies, to see how we can get to a place where records can be managed at best transparent to the user, or maybe in the interim or more practically with minimal intervention on the part of the user. So the first thing I want to talk about is our modernization goals. And the goals that you see up here are the two high-level goals from the Managing Government Records Directive. So hopefully by now everyone is familiar with the OMB NARA issuance, the Managing Government Records Directive, which was issued in August 2012, which was a follow-on to the presidential memorandum that was issued November 2011 by President Obama. So the high-level goals, and really the first one is the key one, requiring electronic record keeping. So we're trying to make this transition across the government to electronic record keeping. And in doing so, we hope that agencies will also be able to better meet the second goal, which is to be compliant with the existing records management statutes and regulations that are out there. So that has really been our focus since 2011, 2012, and we continue to work on these goals. So this slide, we call them transformational goals. Some would argue with me and call them targets because there are deadlines. Doesn't really matter to me. They're all goals, and they're all things that we are working on or have worked on. So these are the two high-level ones that are in the directive. 2016 is the requirement that agencies manage all their email, permanent and temporary, in an accessible electronic format. That goal was due December 2016, and I'll talk a lot more about that in a second. The one that is still there is the 2019 goal, which is a much broader, more complex goal. And it requires that agencies manage all permanent electronic records in electronic format. So the point of both of these goals is really to get the agencies away from printing and filing processes and require that if something is created born digitally, that it remain digital. This has been the challenge, and this has been the work in the directive that we've been working on to really move the government in that direction. And we've been collecting a lot of data that I'll talk to you about in a minute about our progress on these two goals. There were also 18 other targets that were in the Managing Government Directive, most of which are complete. I think the ones that are still outstanding are the overhaul of the general record schedules, which we expect to have completed by the end of this calendar year, and the 2019 goal for managing all permanent electronic records electronically. So I want to talk a little bit about the 2016 goal in email in particular. And I call this the geometry slide because there's lots of triangles and circles on it. And I realize that some of you in the back of the McGowan Theater may not be able to read the text on there. So I'll just very quickly explain what the story is that we're trying to tell with this slide. First, NARA issued this capstone approach to managing email, which is a new and innovative way that we have introduced to agencies for managing their email. So what it does is, in contrast to the way email was managed in the past, which was by content, where a person in an agency would look at the content of the email, print it, and then file it in the related record series, Now we are moving from that content-based approach to a role-based approach, where we're looking to identify accounts, email accounts within agencies where permanent or temporary records are likely to be found. So what this slide shows is that the triangles show where there are permanent, historically valuable email accounts. And the point is, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the permanent emails are at the highest levels of the agency. You'll see there are triangles at other parts of the agency where important functions, processes are being carried out, where we would expect permanent email to be managed. Also, you'll notice that there are circles which indicate where there would not be permanently valuable email accounts. And even at the highest levels of agencies, there may be email accounts that are not permanently valuable. And that is the same throughout an agency. What we have found and what we have issued through our general record schedule for Capstone is that the vast majority of email accounts within an agency are being retained for 7 years. And then there is a lesser percentage of permanently valuable email and also more administrative routine email, which is kept for 3 years. So the bottom line in the title of this slide is the interim approach. We definitely feel like this is a good approach for now. But as technology keeps getting better and better and the tools getting better and better, we expect that there will be something new coming along to replace Capstone. So we are continuing to educate ourselves about what's going on in the tech community and see how we can leverage some of that research and some of those tools to get to the next level. So this is some of the reporting data that we have received from our annual reports from agencies that sort of tells a story about what agencies are doing to manage their email. This slide focuses on Capstone. And I know you can't read, especially if you're in the back, the labels on the pie chart. So I'll just tell you in shorthand, green is good, red is bad. So the numbers that indicate that is about 88% of agencies are in the green, which means they either have a Capstone schedule, a pending Capstone schedule, or are in the process of implementing it. The red indicates that an agency replied to us, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's the smallest percentage in dark red. And then the other part of the red are agencies that do not have either an agency-specific schedule or Capstone covered under our Capstone General Record Schedule. So that's 12% of the agencies that we really need to focus on to follow up and find out what they're doing and how they plan to meet the goal, which has already passed. And we are actively and aggressively following up with those agencies. We're working on some more letters. We are meeting with agencies to find out what they are doing and how they plan to manage their email going forward. So it's still a work in progress. It's actually, very comforting to see that 88% of agencies, might be even a little more at this point, are actually getting implementation of Capstone and email management in place. It's just always going to be, a part of the story that we have to identify where it's not happening. I can say that the red part of the pie where it's not happening, none of those are departmental level agencies. They're all typically smaller agencies, not as heavily resourced in records management, lower staffed, that it always takes them a little bit longer to sort of get in line with the larger agencies. The last thing I want to say about email is a document that we issued in April of last year. And this was issued to sort of answer the question, how will you know if agencies are successful meeting that December 2016 goal for email? And we call this, in shorthand, our success criteria document. It actually has a much longer title than that. And it really identifies criteria in 4 areas. Do agencies have the policies in place around email? Do they have the systems in place to manage those emails? Can they provide access to those emails for as long as they need to be accessed, to the point where they can either be destroyed or transferred to the archives. And last, do they have the capability to execute disposition, either permanent or temporary, on those bodies of emails? So within each of those 4 categories, we have specific questions and another attachment where we map to the requirements around email. And we expected agencies to use these questions and this tool to do their own assessment within their agencies about the progress that they are making around email. We then, in turn, took those same questions and this same approach and construct to require them to report to us on their progress. And I'm happy to report that every agency, 100% of agencies, replied to us with their email management report, and we have since posted all of those reports up on our website so that anyone can go and look at, for example, what the CIA is doing in terms of managing their email. So that sort of segues into the next thing I'm going to talk about very quickly, reporting and oversight out of our reporting and oversight program. Typically when I talk about oversight, I have a whole bunch of colorful charts in addition to the pie chart that I just showed you, graphs, tables that sort of give you different views of the data. So the reports that we do annually, and we added the email management report this year, the one in the middle, we always have an annual records management self-assessment where agencies self-report to us on compliance around the various requirements around records management. And in the last several years, we have required the senior agency official for records management to submit a report to us. The reports that are on the right, the email and the senior agency official report, they are all up on our website, the individual reports. The RMSA is in process, and we are issuing a report this summer which will summarize and do some trend analysis for all 3 of these reports. That report has been drafted. We need to do some review internally, but we expect that sometime this summer we'll be able to get out this report on our website so that you can see the big picture of what records management looks like in 2017. The only other thing I would say about this slide is that from what we have seen from the data so far, most agencies are in that low to moderate risk category for management of their records. So there are agencies that are at high risk. We do look at who those agencies are, and we figure out how we might want to look at those agencies more closely through our oversight and inspection program. But it's good to see the progress, and the trends with the RMSA are definitely showing gradual improvement over the years in terms of lowering the risk within these agencies for managing records. So just very quickly on how we use the results, and what I wanted to emphasize on this slide is that the data that we collect through these reports and these tools is not just for NARA. We expect that agencies are also using it as well to improve records management within their agencies. It's valuable for us so that we can see the trends, so that we can see which agencies we need to focus on, but we expect that every agency is using the data to determine their areas for improvement and then making those improvements where they are needed. I mentioned the senior agency official for records management, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about who that person is and why it's such an important position. So we did identify the need and required the appointment of a senior agency official for records management in the Managing Government Records Directive in 2012. And we have been learning ever since how to leverage that person so that they can be more effective within their agencies to improve records management. So overall, the point of a senior agency official in an agency for records management is to improve accountability and to be an advocate for records management throughout the department or the agency. And in the past, we have had issues where a records officer in an agency who might be a lower graded employee did not have the access to senior political appointees or other high-level officials to brief them or inform them about what they should or should not be doing with regard to records. So this position is designed to make that bridge between the records officer and the records program and those important people in addition, providing strategic direction to an agency on what they should be doing as far as managing their records and their information. So we were very pleased when a year ago, OMB, as part of their revision of OMB Circular A130, incorporated a lot of the work that we had done with the directive and some of our thoughts that we had been thinking about into A130, which is titled Managing Information as a Strategic Resource. So the important part of this slide is, A, records management is now much more prominent in official OMB guidance that goes to CIOs. So in addition to talking about things like privacy and security, now there is a much more robust section on records management, as you can see in section 5H on the slide. That's where you would go to find all that information. It also incorporates the major goals, the 2016 and 2019 goals of the directive. It drops the 2016 and 2019 dates, which is good, because going forward, it would just be an ongoing requirement that agencies need to do that. It also requires the SAORM, so it adds a little bit more than what we said in the directive about the importance of a senior agency for records management. It really gives us something for us to build upon. And that's what we're doing. We are engaging with SAORMs, especially during the transition when there was a lot of changeover in senior agency officials for records management. We found it very useful to have meetings with these senior agency officials post-transition to sort of brief them on the importance of managing records, on the importance of not using personal email accounts to conduct business, and on a lot of the emerging and trending issues related to, for example, social media and encrypted messaging apps, and we'll talk about some of those things later. But there are a lot of new developments in records management in addition to the traditional things that we always need to worry about in terms of just good records management. And it was an excellent opportunity to meet with a lot of these senior agency officials and their staff and let them know that we're here to help them, let them know that we have the resources that they can use and that they can leverage so that they can then go into their agencies and provide that leadership. One of the things I wanted to note is that we are working on a new bulletin that we're going to be sending out to senior agency officials in records management that will better define the roles and responsibilities for the senior agency official community and take care of some operational housekeeping things that we need them to do. But more importantly, that bulletin will really define those roles and responsibilities so that we'll have something very firm, tangible, and concrete that we can then talk to all senior agency officials going forward. Okay, so now we got to open government. And I wanted to spend some time talking about what we are doing in records management related to open government, because we have been doing it for years and we've had some successes and some areas where we're going to continue to focus. So just in case this isn't obvious, open government is very much alive as far as our records management program is concerned. And we continue to work on the kinds of activities that will allow us to get more information out on our website, that will allow us to publish more information about what agencies are doing in records management so that there is greater transparency and openness about what we are doing in our interactions with agencies. So we are committed to making this information available, and we will continue to post information on our website. And we are looking forward to meeting with public groups, advocacy groups, and other stakeholders to see how we might be able to do this better. So on this slide, you'll see that in the third National Action Plan, which is just wrapping up, we had 3 commitments. One was to process CAPSTONE submissions from agencies and make them available on our website so that the public could see who has adopted CAPSTONE for managing email, and then just making that available. In addition, we also had a spreadsheet, which is up on our website, that shows for every agency under the Federal Records Act how they are proposing to capture and manage their email, either through CAPSTONE, the GRS, or an agency-specific schedule. The other thing that our second commitment was really improving our reporting, and I talked about that with the email management report, that we asked very specific questions about email management. We've produced a report about it, and we've released publicly all the agency reports related to how they are managing their email. And then the third commitment is our records control schedules repository. One of the things we wanted to do was make some improvements to the RCS repository so that it's more usable for the public, the stakeholders, and for anyone who wanted to go to the portal and find information about agencies' records in the way that they were scheduled and approved by NARA. So we're trying to improve the searchability of it, the usability of it, and that is the item that is still ongoing. We still have some work to do in that area, although we've made a number of improvements so far. The other slide related to open government relates to the NARA's plan, our internal open government plan. And you can see there are 5 areas that we're focusing on as part of our internal open government plan. In the area of reporting, as I already talked about, publishing more reports, making them more available on our website. Continuing to work on oversight, but more importantly, making a lot of our oversight work available publicly on our website. So now we publish inspections of agencies, and you can go to our website and see the inspection report for Department of Commerce, Veterans Affairs, and so on, and see the kinds of issues that we found when we went into those agencies. We also did a lot of work around presidential transition. We produced a number of guidance products, documenting your public service website. We even had some videos and a lot of information targeted directly to political appointees and senior officials. I already mentioned the records control schedules repositories. You can see there's a lot of overlap between the internal plan and the National Action Plan. So the records control schedules repository, that's an important effort for us, so we wanted to include it here as well. And then lastly, the regulatory updates, which is still a work in progress. As we work with the new administration, we expect that there will be more regulations that will be coming out, making sure that they're updated, they're revised, they're modern, and they get to exactly the right requirements that we want to have for federal agencies. And then last, just a slide that references where you might find the National Action Plan, where the records management piece is. And you'll see on the title, if you can read it, Records Management, the Backbone of an Open Government. Just wanted to highlight here that not only is records management the backbone of open government, it's the backbone of a good FOIA program, right? So that connection is important, and we feel like records management is something that every agency should really be focusing on, and not just for making sure that we're good stewards of the records and information that we have, but also for making those records available to the public so that they can be used. How am I doing on time? Am I going to get the hook soon?
Great.
I'm all right? So I just got a couple more things to talk about. Policies and guidance. So this is really like the ghost of records management, present and future, because it talks about some of the things that we're working on now, but really some of the challenges that we're going to need to face going forward. So I like this slide, one, because there's no words on it that you have to sit there and read. Really what we're trying to say here is that if you're not sure who's driving that car, it's technology. And we, in records management, are continually trying to keep up with the fast pace of change that technology is imposing upon us. So in terms of producing policies and keeping them current and up to date, it's a real challenge. And we're always looking at innovative new approaches for how we can create policy that will accommodate these changes in technology and allow agencies to manage their records better. So for example, CAPSTONE and that approach to managing email, we feel was an innovative solution that really gets agencies closer to what they would want them to do in terms of managing their records. So we need to continue to think about how we can do more things like CAPSTONE and apply different approaches in different ways to make sure that we're leveraging the technology, but that it's having the positive impact that we want it to have. One of the things that I think about a lot about my staff within the Office of the Chief Records Officer and also the staffs within the records management programs within agencies is that we really need to be wider and deeper in terms of how we are learning, keeping abreast, and interacting with agencies. So what do I mean by that? So wider, we need to expand our knowledge of the various things that are out there that are driven by technology that have records management implications. So one of the things, for example, I was at a conference not too long ago where they spent a lot of time talking about blockchain technology. Well, I mean, blockchain technology, I'm not going to go into the details here about how it's a decentralized architecture that actually provides better security for records. Really, it's looking at that technology and seeing, what are the records management implications of that? And we need to really expand our consciousness around what are the other things that, along the spectrum of what might affect records management, we need to be aware of. The deeper part is we don't need to necessarily get deep into each one of those things, but for the ones and the technologies that are of critical interest now, for example, email in the past several years, perhaps electronic messaging now, managing records on websites, we do need to get deeper. We need to get more knowledgeable and collect more data so that we can really drill into what are the issues around those kinds of technologies that we need to be very well informed about so that we can produce the right kind of guidance at the right level for agencies. So that is the challenge, and as you can tell from the kinds of things that we're working on, the challenges going forward are increasingly technical. And our staff, not only within NARA, but also within agencies, we need to get to a point where they are comfortable with technology and these more complex technical subjects if we're all going to be successful. So I mentioned messaging. This slide, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is we did issue in 2014 amendments to the Federal Records Act, which now better define electronic records and electronic messaging and provides some new requirements around electronic messaging. For example, now there is the requirement that if you send a message or an email on your personal account, it needs to be forwarded into the official account within 20 days. So that was good. We tied up some loose ends and added some more language and requirements for agencies around messaging. The bad is, well, I call this the 3 Fs. So there are 3 approaches to the way agencies approach messaging. One, they forbid it, which we found is not an effective way of proceeding within agencies because agencies will still use those tools or figure out a way to use them. The other F is forget it, and I promise you I'm not going to get to the F that you're thinking about. Forget it means, I'm just not going to look over here and see what agencies are doing. I'm going to just do what I'm doing, and if I'm the records officer, I'm just going to forget about the fact that agencies are using messaging, messaging apps, and chatting away for business. The third is fudge it. So this is the agencies who really want to try and do what they should be doing, but they don't have the tools to actually do it right or do it effectively. So some agencies, I won't name them, do things like cut and paste a text out of a chat into an email and then send the email into the official system. I'm guessing, and it's a guess, that this is not being done consistently and effectively across agencies. It's a very cumbersome way of doing things. So what we really need to do is we really need to get to a place where the tools catch up and become affordable and available to agencies, and then we can write policy and do training around it for agencies so that they can use these tools to manage these records more effectively. It's really where we need to get so that we don't have to worry about the 3 Fs anymore. So big data, just very quickly about big data. From an appraisal perspective, and I talked about my staff, I mean, this is really something that we are grappling with, and I'm guessing a lot of other agencies are grappling with the notion of big data as well. The thing is, it's not really about volume. I mean, volume's a part of it, but it's really more about how information is being used today. The data is out there in data sets that are interrelated, and agencies and customers are using all kinds of analytical tools to mine the data and use the data. And this really makes it a challenge for us as an agency who go out to do appraisal of records. If you're trying to look at how to schedule that kind of information using the traditional paradigm, you're going to get very quickly confused and lost. So what we are seeing right now, and it's been happening for many years, is a paradigm shift where the traditional notion of managing the content of records from a control perspective has really morphed into how we can use the information and then provide the support from a records management perspective that will enable that, to allow agencies to use information that are in big data sets so that they can do their business and be more effective. The notion of control, while we still need to make sure records are well managed, doesn't necessarily work in the new paradigm where agencies are using information and leveraging information in much different ways than they were in the past. So this is an ongoing issue and something that we're continually trying to get smarter about and working with agencies to find out what those issues are so that we can issue guidance and training and really bring everybody along with us. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that we're working on now, and this will be the ghost of records management future. 2019 success criteria, so the last target in the directive for agencies to manage all their permanent electronic records electronically. That target is up December of 2019, and we are working on a similar construct to what I talked about before with the email success criteria, where the same kinds of things still apply. I mean, you still need to have policies, you still need to have systems, you still need to be able to access those electronic records, and you have to be able to execute disposition so that those records can be transferred to NARA. So that kind of construct still works, and one of the things that we put along with the criteria that we're going to be issuing are requirements, electronic records management requirements and use cases that will give agencies even more information about what they need to do first after they've identified their permanent electronic records, but the requirements for which they need to make sure that they're properly maintained so that they can be preserved, accessed over time, and then eventually transferred to NARA. Another thing that we've made a commitment to do is update our web guidance, and this is the guidance that we issued in 2005 for how agencies should be managing records on websites. So we are going to do at minimum a refresh of that guidance, but we're also thinking about what is the web guidance of 2017 and what does that need to look like. And I'm really looking forward to engaging some of our public and stakeholder groups to see what those issues are. We'll be talking with other agencies about those issues from an implementation perspective and a use perspective. And I expect that sometime in the very near future, we'll have new guidance for agencies on how to manage those web records. Greater efficiency and effectiveness, it means something very specific here, and I'm referring to OMB's memo M1722, where agencies are now assigned the task of making their programs and functions and activities streamlined, more efficient, more effective. So we are doing the same within the Office of the Chief Records Officer in looking at what we are doing, our processes, where we can get better, where we can get leaner, and where we can make improvements for the benefit of the government and for the public. And then finally, advocacy and outreach, that's something that continues. We are continuing to work with senior agency officials, with the larger records management community, with our communities of practice, to get the message out about records management. And hopefully we will someday get to that point where we have a government where records management is considered essential and critical to mission effectiveness. That is the goal. Hopefully we will get there soon. And with that, I will stop, and I don't know if we have time for questions or...
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to take a few questions. I'll leave you here with this slide to our blog, Records Express, where you can find everything new and current. And we also have the link here to our records management webpage, where we do post all of our guidance, including the reports that I mentioned in the presentation.
Nate.
Nate Jones, National Security Archive. First of all, Records Express is a great blog. I recommend everyone to get it on the alerts because they explain complicated things like you do quite in a way that you can understand them. So my question is with regard to searching for FOIA. So in addition to Logan and others here, we're on the FOIA search committee. And especially what we've found is that one of the tricky things is searching for emails. And it seems to me personally as an outsider that in 2017 it shouldn't be that tricky. I search my Gmail pretty easily. I know the government's not on Gmail. But the question is, talking about CAPSTONE, one of the points you said, can it permit access to the email? So I guess my question is, once an agency effectively implements CAPSTONE to the A+ NARA thing, to judgment, can they search emails in response to a FOIA request easily and effectively? And if so, how? And if not, what else needs to be done so that that can happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, I'd like to say that we are also on Gmail. So, you know, for me, when I have to do a search for FOIA, I mean, the search functionality in Gmail is great. I don't know about other platforms, but I imagine they're similar. I mean, I think the answer to your question really is we, in this CAPSTONE environment, are going to be light years better than where we were in the past in terms of finding emails in response to FOIAs. I think it's going to be a little while before we see some results because agencies are just now implementing their CAPSTONE approaches. We've approved, there are about 260 federal agencies, and I think we have either approved or have pending and soon to be approved roughly half of the agencies, and trust me, they are coming in every day for approval, so that number continues to go up. But as they implement them, because we're just asking agencies to just identify those accounts, preserve those accounts, it's a much easier thing than what we were asking them to do years ago with the traditional approach to managing emails. So I expect that it is going to be easier, and how individuals do searching is, you know, maybe the difference. Some people are more astute and knowledgeable in how to do individual searches for FOIA, but I think most people now, because we're all much more familiar with email and the systems that we work with and the environment that we now live, that I would expect it would improve, and especially with CAPSTONE, I think it's, you know, as we go on, for agencies that have implemented the CAPSTONE approach, I think it's going to be, you're going to get much better results.
Tom.
Tom Sussman. Lawrence, you talk about electronic records management electronically as if there's sort of a binary system where you have paper and electronics, and electronics is all sort of homogeneous. And you know, the technology advances and changes obviously affect electronics. Come to my basement and tell me what to do with VCR tapes, floppy disks, 8mm films, vinyl records, cassette tapes. I mean, these are all forms of electronic, and yet I have a hell of a time managing them. What happens next? I mean, you know, we all thought that saving things on floppy disk was sort of the wave of the future, and then now they're gone. Cassettes or CDs next, and now it's the thumb drive. When that's replaced by something, I mean, how do you manage electronically when the electronics themselves, the format, the electronic format itself, keeps changing so quickly?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it is a challenge. You know, as I mentioned, you know, in my remarks, technology is the driver, and it's a huge thing that we need to account for. One of the things that we, for the permanent records that are out there, we maintain and continually revise and update our transfer format guidance. So we have a suite of acceptable formats that agencies can use to transfer records to the National Archives. So what the agencies need to do, and their responsibility is, while those records are within their legal custody, that they are required, per the regulations that we have, to continually evaluate them, test those records, migrate those records, and then ultimately, when they're ready for transfer to the archives, that they come to us in one of those acceptable formats that we maintain and have available on our website. So it is a huge challenge. And by the way, paper's not going away anytime soon. There's still a ton of paper out there. that we need to account for. And what this target requires is that once we get to January 1st, 2020, we expect that records are going to be created digitally and maintained that way. And we're still going to have to deal with paper, but there are ways of dealing with that with digitization and scanning. And there may be more on that topic coming. We did have it in the directive goal that we wanted agencies to digitize to the extent practicable. But regardless, paper, digitized, scanned, born digital, the important thing is that the agencies are responsible for maintaining and preserving records in acceptable formats so that when they do need to come to the archives, we get what we need in the format that we need.
Sean.
Sean Moulton. So we talked about, Nate just talked about agencies and the CAPSTONE program, especially around emails. And you'd said 2016 was a goal for emails being electronically managed. And I guess my question is, does that electronic management, being able to manage them and keep them electronic, does that extend to disclosure? Because I still, when anyone in my office sends a FOIA in for potentially hundreds or thousands of emails, I appreciate that CAPSTONE and other devices help them find emails and sort them and figure out what they want to disclose. But I still get them all just printed out and sent to me that way. I've never gotten emails sent to me in some sort of organized set of files that I could then search and organize myself. Is that something that's coming? Is it something that we just haven't really added to this idea of whether or not that's part of what we call electronic records management?
Right. So, I can tell you as of now, because the goal is passed, agencies are required to manage all their email electronically, which means no printing and filing. Now, in terms of disclosure and providing records to requesters, that's out of my lane. Maybe, Alina could address that. I don't know what the requirements are in terms of paper and electronic in terms of providing them to FOIA requesters, but in terms of what agencies are required to do, they have to maintain those emails electronically. This should not be any more printing and filing. So maybe the answer is the processes need to catch up, or the processes need to be changed, or the requirements need to be changed now that we are living in that environment. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
All right. Any other questions from anyone here at the table? Anyone on the phone have any questions?
Jill, we good?
I actually had another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So a different question. You talked about the senior agency officials in charge of records management.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that was a responsibility assigned to someone who already had a position at the agency, rather than sort of a new position with this being its sole responsibility. Is that correct?
Yeah. So technically, we don't say that it has to be a new position. The guidance that we issued indicated what level an agency SAORM needs to be. Usually it's like at a cabinet, it would be like a deputy assistant secretary or assistant secretary and higher. And for most agencies, it seems to be the CIO. We have a lot of SAOs that are also the CIOs, which in a way makes sense. I'm talking about information governance where records management is a piece of it, so it does make sense that that person can see information across the landscape. But it's not always the CIO. In some agencies, it might be an undersecretary. So typically, those people do have other duties. So that is our challenge, in trying to raise the profile and get them to, give records management its due. But that's why we're here, and that's why we've been meeting with these folks to sort of explain to them, that this is a priority, and this is what we need you to do to make sure that you're in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Alina.
Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Thank you for your time.
I have asked already once. Anyone else on the phone before Lawrence takes off? Going once, going
There's a
twice.
delay.
Waiting for the delay.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you again. We really appreciate it. So I think Lawrence gave us some great information today. Hopefully it'll spur some further discussion among the subcommittees. I think we're staying on schedule pretty much. We're going to first hear from the Proactive Disclosure Subcommittee, and then we'll take a break. So I think Margaret is going to present since you're here, but Sarah is on the phone and will be also pitching in. So.
Absolutely, thanks. Margaret Kwoka. So I think our update is going to be relatively brief, but I think quite positive. We have outlined in our committee now a plan for the various components of the draft recommendations that we are planning to issue. So those components, I think, are really break down into two categories. One is on the question of 508 compliance, and that's something that the committee has spent a fair amount of time information gathering about. We have had some assistants doing some legal research. Actually, Tom Sussman had someone doing some legal research about 508 compliance issues. We've spoken with some experts, and we've also spoken with a number of agencies now about their approach to harmonizing 508 requirements and proactive disclosures. And so actually Nate and Sarah are going to take the lead on drafting recommendations that hopefully focus on ways that agencies can both meet their 508 requirements and obligations, but not be hindered unduly in implementing proactive disclosure programs and initiatives. So that's going to be one component of the recommendations that is being worked on now, and I think we've done all of the information gathering that we need at this point to move forward with that. I don't know, Nate, you're welcome to jump in if you have anything to add on that front.
Sure. I would just add that you can say the word recommendations, but it's also hopefully will be a useful guide that an agency employee could look at it and say, I want to get this information online. How do we do it? What's the laws? We went back and read all the stuff. It's pretty complicated. Thankfully, the FOIA Advisory Committee has boiled it down for us.
Absolutely, yeah. That exactly sums up, I think, where the subcommittee is hoping that this recommendation will be very practical in its approach for agencies, and something that agencies who want to move the ball forward on proactive disclosure can use to bolster their initiatives and figure out how to walk that line. So the other component of the recommendations is going to focus on the question of how agencies should decide what to proactively disclose. And I think maybe one of the kind of most recent and exciting developments in our thinking about this is to actually try to come up with a list of specific items that this committee can recommend agencies do in fact endeavor to proactively disclose. And so on the first piece, on how agencies should go about deciding what to proactively disclose, we're hoping, again, in the same vein that Nate just talked about, to come up with, in this arena, some set of guidelines or considerations that we think agencies should use in deciding whether records, certain records or certain categories of records are appropriate for proactive disclosure or not. And then the second piece of that, to actually come up with a list. What we've done is recently started distributing a call through various networks, both government and non-governmental, for casting a wide net for ideas for what should be on that list. We're certainly using existing lists that have been compiled about things that might be good subjects for affirmative disclosure. We're trying to cast a very wide net in the hopes that then we will have come up with a long list that the subcommittee will consider each item individually and determine whether we think, in fact, it would be appropriate, an appropriate target for affirmative or proactive disclosure. And then whatever list we come up with, we will put before this committee, of course, to discuss whether those items are the right items. But we hoped at the end of this to have a set of recommendations that really, instead of at a very high level, much more specifically gave guidance and suggestions to agencies about how to improve and expand proactive disclosure. That's all I had. I'll let Sarah jump in if she had anything, since she's on the phone, anything to add to that report.
No, thanks, Margaret. I don't. I'll just look forward to working with Nate on our part of the project.
Sarah, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? We weren't quite sure what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said I didn't have anything to add, but was looking forward to see the final results of the project.
Okay. Thank you. Last opportunity to recruit Michael, if you want to, for your subcommittee.
Sarah doesn't like me, so.
And I'm sure, like all the subcommittees, we would be excited to have another set of hands. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We actually are a little bit early, but that's good. Oh, yes. Sorry, I was jumping right to the break. Any other committee members have any questions for this subcommittee? Everyone seems very ready for a break, I think. Logan, did you have a question?
Yeah, Logan Perel. I just want to know, did you guys consider, or are you considering making recommendations, I guess, on universal records that could be released across all federal agencies, as opposed to, not things to consider, but something that, the cabinet secretary's daily schedule, like everyone should release that, or something along those lines?
Yes, absolutely. So on some of the lists that we have started with that have been compiled elsewhere in other projects, records like that kind of categories that span agencies certainly appear on those lists, and we'll be considering those. Something else that I personally am spending some time looking into and hoping to make a proposal to the subcommittee about is a universal format for disclosing FOIA logs. And so there, I think, and yes, calendars have been on those kinds of lists. I'm trying to remember, like agency handbooks. There have been other kind of categories of things that have already shown up on the initial list that we've looked at.
Reports to Congress.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Those sorts of things. And so I think we absolutely should be able to, and perhaps actually your comment is very useful in thinking about whether we can break down our recommendations in some ways in the final format to say, these are kinds of like types of records that all agencies probably have, or most agencies probably have and should disclose. And then perhaps we have some specific records that really only apply to one agency that would be kind of on a separate part of the recommendation. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Anyone else on the phone have any questions? How long are we supposed to wait? Okay, I think there's a break. Please come back in 15 minutes. Reminder, the Charters Cafe restrooms are on the ground floor, and no food or drink is permitted back in the theater. And let's come back at 11, oh, I'm terrible at math, 35. Amy said 11:33, so that's what holds. Thank you. Break.
Good to see you in person. Nate.
I know. Well, I really appreciate your recent kind of pushing the ball forward.
Sure.
The search is way too broad. They have trouble searching the catalogs. We want all emails to say.
He indicated maybe that there is some sort of technology that would solve that problem.
get to them in the morning if you
No,
need
no,
them.
I'll do it as soon as we wrap this
I
up.
knew with this meeting, there were higher priorities.
No, it's just like everything sort of is happening all at once.
And the,
Right.
the 27th, yeah.
Right, it's just been a crazy time trying to get ready.
I know I had to cancel my homework and my dishwasher.
All these meetings. The meeting was gonna be good.
Yeah.
Around we're excited. No? We're excited.
We've had about, we're around 290 people now.
That's great. Is that better than usual?
It's tracking to actually be more than last year even.
Great.
Right now, if they continue from last year at this time, this week, we got 57 registrations in there.
And how many this week?
So far, we're about 32.
Okay. Well,
So we hooked up some other things too. But anyway, I'll let you guys get back.
Thank you for taking care of her. Really, really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's gonna work out.
Okay. Yeah, that's what she told me.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that.
We do what we can, you know?
Right.
And we do it on a case by case basis.
Yes. It's really going to help her out. So thank
You
you very
also
much.
look at, as a board member, you're gonna have to look at.
They shut the airport down.
You've got to be able to have judgment, like, this organization is
Which year?
not even just this year.
So I was flying through Charlotte to come here
Can you do the, you know?
Monday
Well,
night.
totally appreciate it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Supposed to land at 8:30. I landed at 1 a.m.
It was shit because of weather. The weather's light.
Yeah. Yep. And lightning and rain.
Well, so like,
I'm
well,
okay
like
with
you're
that.
okay with it, but it's still difficult. And you're
I couldn't get a hotel, so I actually slept there. I could, but it was like 30 minutes away. It's everybody.
Okay, so the signal in here is terrible.
You've been hiking lately?
So I hope the chat is working.
That's cool. It was rainy and it's 40 degrees.
We'll have to check in with Joe, yeah.
Hiked this mountain and then got to the top and it was all clouds. It was sunrise.
Oh, yes, so much.
I did some deep breathing exercises in the green room. Feel a little better. Are these on now?
Yes.
Everyone can hear that.
The beaches are really pretty. We got to see some sloths.
Some what?
Sloths. Three-toed sloths. I was pretty excited about the sloths.
Did you camp or at least stay?
All the mics are on.
Steve,
I just double checked.
But that's fine. So much better to talk about that than other things. For anyone? Everyone's back. Okay, I think we're all back. Folks on the phone, hopefully you've hung in there and you're still with us.
Silence.
Silenced. There's a delay.
That means they're there.
They're there, okay. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for sticking it out for the rest of our meeting. Next, we're going to hear from the search subcommittee. Logan and Nate are going to be providing us with updates and telling us about everything they've been doing and leading any discussion or taking any questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. This is going to be, I think, fairly short, but that doesn't mean that we haven't made much progress. So it's kind of, well, I guess before I start, actually, I'm going to use my prerogative to make two personal points. One is a bit sentimental, and one is a bit critical. But first, the sentimental one. I want to thank the search subcommittee and other people. For the past 3 months, I've actually been working remotely from a fellowship in Ukraine, so doing a lot more on email and calls and different time zones. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for Logan for often taking the lead, and I'm back and ready to go. But I did want to share one memory, one soliloquy from my experience there, and that was that Ukraine has recently completely opened up their archives and passed a Freedom of Information law, and this was a huge push for them, and really they view it, the country views it as moving towards the future. And when I was there again and again and again, I spoke about being on the FOIA Advisory Committee and doing research in our own national archives. And it was absolutely clear to me that they, without a doubt, look to America as the leader on openness. And it was really a rewarding experience to hear that, because I work with you guys doing it. And it also was kind of a bit of a kick in the pants, because it meant that we can't rest on our laurels and we need to keep being the leader. So I just wanted to share that experience from being abroad, is that many people in the rest of the world look to us. So let's keep going. My second point of privilege, critical before we get to our work, is about finishing that work and pushing it across the goal line. I think a lot of the people here know that one of the big things that the last committee did was unanimously approve to the archivist, and the archivist agreed and sent off to OMB something saying, update the OMB guidance on FOIA fees. Now, this FOIA fee guidance was written in 1986, before the internet, before sending an email instead of sending things via post, and it's missing key words. It badly needs an update. As far as I can tell, OMB told the Senate Judiciary Committee that they're, in one sentence, that they're considering what the FOIA Advisory Committee said, but I get the hunch that no work is being done. So I just want to reiterate, in my opinion, it's not enough for the Advisory Committee to submit unanimously very strong recommendations that the archivist signs that go somewhere else to, dare I say the word, die. So that's concerning, and I wanted to get that on the record. So thanks. Now, back to more progress that's being made on the FOIA Search Subcommittee. Essentially, what we spent the past, I guess, 3 months working on was getting a game plan together to meet the first goal to make the deliverable. And essentially, where we are now, after having done a pretty broad survey and having talked to quite a large amount of stakeholders, is our goal is to produce a document that will serve as the FOIA Advisory Committee's best recommendations for how agencies should do searches under FOIA, which I think we can come to agreement is one of the big log jams or stumbling blocks. Is once the documents are in people's hands, they review them pretty quickly, get them out pretty quickly, but it's kind of hard to find them, as we talked about with Lawrence earlier. So I'm going to open up the subcommittee, but just a few of the points that we're pondering, and these will be expanded upon, clarified, debated, but I just want to give a taste of the type of things that we think we're going to suggest are, one, right now the government does not actually do a very good job keeping track of the methods used. So perhaps recommending some way of reporting how agencies are searching for FOIA. So that's the first step, is we know, and then the second step will be seeing which ones work and which ones don't, and agencies can take them. Two, including some as agencies are evaluated for their FOIA compliance. We know that FOIA is everyone's responsibility. We should ensure that how they conduct and work for searches is part of that. Three, we have to make sure that as agencies, and this is often above the FOIA shop's head, buy technology, the FOIA shop has a say to say, if you buy that technology, we're not going to be able to do effective FOIA searches. So making sure that when agencies modernize their technology, FOIA people make sure that they have a say so that the documents can be searchable. And I will add, as Margaret knows, that also they should have a say that they're OCR compliant. And just one more, and we have more that I'll let our subcommittee talk about, but instilling and recommending that even more than it is right now, that a first step should often or always be that the agency and the people submitting the search reach out to the requester, say, here's the record systems we have, here's what I can search, what do you really want? We know that this is the best practice, but it happens a lot, but I think we should make it so that it happens every time or almost every time. What'd I miss, Logan?
So I think just kind of picking up from there, just to kind of give folks some insight who aren't on subcommittee background into how we got to where we got, we had, I think, more ambitious goals to kind of baseline the federal government and make recommendations based upon the technology we saw. And the first step in doing that was to figure out who's using what and how it works, and we realized we couldn't even do that. So realizing that we needed a recommendation to fill that gap so that future subcommittees or future committee could then take that data and then look into it and make recommendations, I think was kind of the first thing. And the second thing, which is something Jill's really helped us out a lot and talked about, is kind of the accountability piece and making sure that searches are done, that they're done timely, and that every employee in their performance plan or in some way has that as part of their responsibility so that they can be measured upon and rated upon their responsiveness to that. And I think those are just two additional things I wanted to add to Nate, and I think other subcommittee members can speak to that as well.
Anyone else want to add anything? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Anyone on the phone? Do we still have people on the phone? Is anyone there on the phone?
Hi, this is Beverly, your captioner. I'm on the phone. There was someone on the phone earlier that was creating so much feedback. I asked several times for them to mute the phone so that I was able to hear.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the other folks on the phone? I'm sorry about the feedback. Don't know what we sound like. Okay. I thank you very much for all the hard work you've been
A
putting
brief
in.
update does not mean brief work.
Absolutely not. I know everyone has been working very hard, so I'm very appreciative of that, and we are really looking forward to some great findings. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Efficiencies and Resources Subcommittee. I'm going to look over to Ginger and Chris to give us an update. I know you guys have been meeting regularly and having the most efficient meetings I have ever attended in my entire life. Ginger runs very tight meetings. So if you could please give us an update, that would be great.
So as we talked about last time, our plan was to look at data sets on agencies, to analyze those data sets and identify high-performing agencies. So we identified our set of high-performing agencies, both large and medium-sized agencies. And then we identified contacts within each agency and divided the agencies up amongst the people on the subcommittee. We worked together to draft questions that could allow us to understand why these agencies are performing so well. And we edited that list of questions and put it into a letter which I included today to the committee so everyone can take a look at what it is we're up to. In our letter, we asked if the agency has a reduction in backlog, what tools or approaches worked, what technologies are they using, what are their largest challenges, for example, budget or tech, how the FOIA staff is structured and how the responsibilities are broken out, what searches can be carried out by that FOIA staff and how are those searches carried out, how many layers of review exist before responses are sent out, what kinds of trainings do these agencies have for their FOIA and non-FOIA personnel, what efficiencies or inefficiency, we asked them about efficiencies or inefficiencies of receiving paper versus electronic requests, if they increase their capacity to process requests by using contractors or detailees or interns, do they receive requests for a particular category of records more than any other? And we asked them to outline the time spent on each part of their processing of a request from intake to final response and the estimated number of pages that their agency processes yearly. So we were hoping with these questions to be able to get to some data points that maybe we wouldn't be able to identify just through already public annual FOIA reports and chief FOIA officer reports. To really get down to the more granular details so that we can then analyze that data and come back with a set of recommendations that are well-educated and well-informed recommendations. So this week we are sending this letter out via email to the contacts that we've identified at the agencies. some of whom might be in the room right now. So if you receive this email, please do respond in a timely manner. We've asked that agencies get back to us on that email and hopefully have a conversation with us via telephone or in person by July 28th, so that then we can achieve our goal of putting together draft recommendations and submitting that by the October 5th deadline that we've been asked to comply with. So our plan right now, our next step is that we've done that outreach, and we're hoping to conduct those interviews in the next week or two.
Great, thanks, Ginger. Chris, do you want to add anything?
No, just that we received your more aggressive timeline, and we're, as Ginger mentioned, we're adhering to it. So
we appreciate
we
the timeline.
do appreciate the structure.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions for this subcommittee?
Also, one comment. It could be that as a response to these questions, we get information that might be relevant to the other subcommittees.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do, we'll be certain to share that with the other subcommittees as well, because I see that some of these questions do get to issues of search, of technologies that are used for search. So this could be useful to the other subcommittees as well.
Okay, that would be great. All right, I'm looking around. Does anyone have any questions for Ginger or Chris? Any other subcommittee members want to weigh in? Okay. Anyone on the phone have any questions or comments they want to share? Okay, I think there was enough of a wait, right? Amy said it's okay.
I did want to take this opportunity to thank our subcommittee members. We've had a pretty aggressive telephone meeting schedule, and people have been very, very good about keeping up with that.
Yeah. Also, this is a pitch to get Michael on your subcommittee, so feel free. And I forgot to give Nate and Logan that opportunity, so.
If you enjoy bi-weekly conference calls, join our subcommittee.
But the most efficient meetings ever. Okay. Well, great. I'm very excited about everyone's work, and very thankful that everyone is working hard and seems very focused. So I think we're going to have some great products that are going to come out of this. So I'm super excited about that. So I think we've come to the end of our committee meeting in terms of discussions amongst ourselves. Unless anyone has any other thoughts or comments, I would like to turn it over to any public comments or questions from folks in the audience, also on live chat. Anyone else have anything they want to add, or David?
Nate spoke about follow-up or lack of follow-up to our recommendations from the first term of this committee. I'm wondering whether there's any interest among the committee members about taking some action now to inquire further.
I think we had this question before, and one of the things that was responded to was that it was the archivist that made the recommendation. So it would be something that Alina would need to, if there was, Alina would need to clear that through the archivist to see if he was interested in doing further, that it might make more sense for you to talk with him first, if there was a sense that that was something that was
Well, I get that. The point of my question was to ask whether the committee would like to have, to ask Alina to do that.
So, David, great point that you're asking. I do want to tell you we have been engaged with our Office of General Counsel internally to talk about the best way forward, because we too share your concern about the fact that we haven't seen any movement from OMB. We are aware and have been advised there's very recent new leadership in OIRA. I think everyone was waiting for that director to come on board. I understand that she was confirmed last week. I'm not sure whether she's reported for her first day in the office, but if she hasn't, it will be soon. And we do plan to follow up once she has settled in and has been briefed. I highly doubt this is going to be the first item on her priority agenda, but we will make sure that it is on her agenda and that it has her attention.
That sounds perfect to me.
Okay.
And this is Sean Moulton. I also think that civil society members who are less constrained by, having to go through procedures could easily follow up with OMB in the coming weeks and months to say, where is this? I know, we speak to them or at least send inquiries over there on a fairly regular basis. So I'm happy to make this part of what we ask about.
And may I just ask, are you getting feedback or responses from them when you are making inquiries?
I would say that, given the transition that you're discussing, we have been experiencing fewer responses or slower responses than previously.
Right.
Maybe with new leadership at OIRA, maybe we'll start to see more coming out faster, but it remains to be seen.
Okay. Great. Any other comments from any other committee members? Going once? Going twice? Okay, anyone else on the phone? I just want to give one last opportunity to our committee members on the phone if you want to make any comments or raise any other issues. Count to 10. Okay, it seems very quiet. Thank you very much again to all the committee members. I am very grateful for all the work you're doing. Amy is here to support you. As everyone, all the subcommittee co-chairs know, Amy will have to be involved as the DFO and all these activities you're engaging in. So that's why I gave her special thanks, because she'll be very busy in the coming months. So, but this is why she's here to help. So. This time, I would like to turn to members of the public for any comments. We'll take comments for about 15 minutes from those of you who are in attendance. We're also monitoring via live chat if anyone has any comments they'd like to weigh in with. Joe Hudson will raise her hand and shout out any questions, or perhaps come up to the lectern and read any chat comments or questions that come up. I do request, if you have any questions or comments, when you approach the microphone, please state your name and your affiliation, if appropriate. So we can now have public comments. This might be a first.
Yeah.
Joe, any chat? Okay, seems like people are very much looking forward to lunch now.
Yeah, we're summertime.
Yeah, it's summertime. Okay, well, unless anyone has any other comments or questions, I want to thank again all the committee members. We invite everyone to visit OGIS's website and social media for more information about our activities and how you can participate. I thank you again for coming. Thank everyone here for coming. We will see everyone at our next meeting right here in the McGowan Theater on October 19th at 10 a.m. And we will post our future meeting dates on our website. And if there are no other questions or concerns, we stand adjourned. Please stay well hydrated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make sure that that's there. That's Thursday.
Yeah, and you're going up like every year by